Am I right? Or are the men outnumbering the women today? I know I've gotten a few texts from Robin, and they're having a great time at La Forêt. And they'll finish up about 11 o'clock this morning and then head back. But I thought, gee, maybe I should talk about men's issues this morning. But then men don't have issues. We just have problems. I did want to continue talking a bit about Nicole's theme of talking about the plants and the animals that she's been doing for now a couple of months. And Corey, thank you for reading God Had a Dog, Made a Dog. What a great start. I must say, please join me in a very short prayer, one that you've heard Nicole say over and over. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, you mentioned, Kari, elephants. Last time that we were here last week, when Nicole was speaking, she spoke of the whale who was pushing around her deceased calf in the ocean, just needing some time to grieve that it hadn't made it. There was a story that National Geographic reran this week, and it had to do with a gentleman named Lawrence Anthony. And he wrote a book called The Elephant Whisperer. And I was just amazed that they came back to it. It was quite advantageous for me because I knew right where I needed to start this morning. Lawrence passed away. And what happened was striking. There was a herd of elephants he had helped to save, as well as others in zoos and other places. But here he was on the plains of Africa. And when he passed away, the elephants from the herd he had saved began a pilgrimage. How they knew, no one knows, except God. The whole herd arrived at the house he'd passed away in. All at once. I was just blown away to realize that, in fact, they knew. They were mourning. Their human friend had died, and somehow the bond between them was so strong that they felt it. They were, as the attendants there had mentioned, elephants hadn't been there in a long time. It wasn't like they came every year or every 2 years. It had been a very long time. And I think that they felt what I felt. When I read about it again, there was an extraordinary proof that animal sensitivity and awareness is something that only a few humans can perceive and experience. And Lawrence was one of them. Lawrence's legacy will be with us forever, and apparently it will stay in the hearts of the elephants as well. Our non-human companions, dogs included. I promised I wouldn't talk about dogs this morning. I see why now. You remember the old song about cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, I can't sing. You're never going to see no unicorn. Well, I guess we're not going to be talking about unicorns because they're not visible, if they are at all. But those non-human companions, many show such deep and enduring compassion. The loyalty and devotion that they have continue past the life of their owner. And in many cases, they'll just resume their normal routines, but keep them close to where the person that they love has died. Other times they will choose to live out their lives right exactly where the human is buried. I had a beautiful white cat. Cats, rats, elephants, sure as you're born, and dogs. I had a beautiful white cat. His name is Mr. Angel. I named him before I knew him. He turned out to be the most elegant critter I've ever been able to say I lived with. He did allow me to live in his house. And when I got him, he was declawed. So he never really would ever do anything that was upsetting. He did have his back claws. But I got Mr. Angel when I was in seminary. And when I was in seminary was in British Columbia, Vancouver School of Theology. And he traveled with me to my first call. I'd targeted Colorado, not knowing what I was getting myself into. I say that because we ended up with me being assigned and accepted as the pastor to Wiggins Community Church. You may or may not know where Wiggins is. I didn't. But it's close to Fort Morgan as you're heading out I-76 east. Well, as time passed, Robin was working at this place that we've come to call the Academy. She was the lead nurse there for a long time. Eventually was also the head or director of the memory care unit at Bella Vista, which was an Academy spinoff. And she brought home a stray cat. It wasn't really a stray, it belonged to one of the folks who lived there who was getting quite old, having difficulties. And it took Robin and this lady's daughter to find this other cat. This other cat taught me a lot. Her name was Amaretto. And many of you who have friends at Bella Vista know Amaretto was sort of a recluse. And to find her, you had to look under the couch, under the bed, in the closets, under the towels. She really was very shy. So Mr. Angel had a sister. It was fun to watch them. But the thing that was the most touching to me after all the years I had had Mr. Angel, I could never sit down without him crawling in my lap. That included eating dinner, which was a little off-putting to some of my friends. But I had to live with him, not them. Amaretto would never give me the time of day. See, she was smarter than Mr. Angel. She knew not to get hooked up with this guy. But she loved Robin. It was such a heartfelt connection between them. And one afternoon, I was watching a football game. Robin happened to be at work. And Amaretto crawled up on the couch next to me for the very first time. And she walked up and stood on my chest. And she looked deeply into my eyes and held it. And I felt the most incredible feeling of love welling up inside me. It was unreal. I can see why in some cultures cats are singled out as some kind of deity. Oh, Amaretto was no angel, but she was deep. And I could feel something I'd never felt before with an animal, which is she could just look at me and make me purr. Unfortunately, the time came when Mr. Angel needed to leave. So sick, so old. To say he died of natural causes would be a lie, because he was nearly dying of natural causes when we helped him to make that transition. When we got home from the vet, and Mr. Angel, of course, was not with us, we were sitting on the couch and reminiscing about the life that we had with Amaretto. No, excuse me, Mr. Angel. Now they're intruding on me. Amaretto, back off. So what ended up happening was, for the very first time since she stood on my chest and hypnotized me, as we were sitting there and talking about Mr. Angel's loss, Amaretto hopped up next to Robin on the couch, which was normal. And within 30 seconds, she looked at me with those eyes again. She reached her hand out and placed her paw on my hand, and she held it. She wouldn't move it until I reacted, which was to pet her hand back. She knew. How did she know? Well, he was gone. Okay, I'll take that one. But something in her reached out to me. Do animals, in fact, have souls? Many of you who have dogs will tell me that, of course they do. Some of you who have cats will say, I don't think so. They don't give me the time of day. But I can tell you there's one cat I've met who was so deep, so rich, so full of love, that she had to hide it. And as the end result came about, the day came when she had to go too. And I actually grieved harder over her loss than I did my own cat, because she had touched me. She had touched me so deeply. So grieving, mourning, it's so clear it happens in animals. It's clear from the elephants that it happens between elephants and humans. They knew. Don't know how, but in God's economy, it all worked out for the best. So they feel such deep emotions that we can't read sometimes. Clearly, we're not the only animals who possess the cognitive and emotional capability for suffering the loss of a loved one. In our 1 Timothy reading, we hear, "For we brought nothing into this world, so that we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with these." That's a mouthful. Of course, in 1 Timothy, in that letter, was also written with some not so nice things about people who strive for money instead of compassion. But that's not what I want to talk about this morning. So we leave things behind. Our friends, our human lives. We leave behind our memories, perhaps. I hope we get to take them with us, because boy, would that be nice to reminisce on from a different perspective. That could be very helpful. So the idea of shedding our stuff, it's like snakes shed their skin. Many animals shed. Remember the cat story? If you don't like cat hair, we can't have you over, though we clean it constantly. So the idea then of shedding, and shedding what's not needed for us to travel on. We need to travel light, we are told. Using animals as an example and looking in the mirror at ourselves, we end up shedding things and shedding things. I've had to shed my ability to walk easily. But again, it's a shedding process. I'm not 22 years old anymore. I'm not 32, 42, 52, or 62 either. But I must tell you that, like the animals, we have to keep a metaphor in hand if we're going to make it through this. We're called to make choices in our efforts to live lightly. Some are not so pleasant because attached to us are many things that we treasure. But those are things that can be given away. And we can make choices that in the long run help us shed what is not essential. Open to let God drive the vehicle that is us. By shedding our own ego, we make room for God. And God works directly through us if we keep the instrument that is us, or the instrument that Elena plays over here, that is her. We have to keep the instrument tuned. We have to be ready to shed. We have to stay focused on the fact that nothing is eternal in the human world except the life that follows. So I'm thinking about the necessity of having a simple life and growing in faith by shedding our past selves. Make sense? Shedding our past selves as we grow into our next stages of maturation. As Nelson Mandela said, to let go is to admit powerlessness, which means the ultimate outcome is not in our hands. To let go is not to regret the past, but to grow and live for now and the future. To let go is to fear less and love more. What a wonderful man, and what a wonderful conduit he was, after all he'd been through, to bring God's life to life in us and encourage it. We have this journey of a lifetime as humans. And we need to make it lighter. We need to make it more passionate. Yes, we want to feel like we're made, that we've made a difference, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, while we've been here in human form. And that we've answered our own call to serve God in the very best way that we can do so. But there's a rainbow bridge waiting for us too. I have a beautiful cartoon, and it shows an elderly person, could be young, but it looked older, lying in a hospital bed. And here came the rainbow bridge. And this person's dog was coming to get them. If you love your dogs, if you love your animals, that one touched me. That one got me where it counted. So finally, we have to shed our human lives to grow into beauty and to freedom, to rejoice in the universal presence, the light, peace, love, and the power that is our true home. Like somebody told my son once, would you just go home? Well, I've had a doctor tell me that once, and I'm still here. I don't know if the doctor's still alive or not. So in that light, peace, love, power, joy, music, whatever you understand heaven to be like for you, don't be afraid. Good heavens, if your dog can make it through it and your cat can make it through it, you're going to be all right. There's hope for the future, regardless of whether you survive a human life or not. The hope for the future is much brighter and bigger, stronger than we can even imagine. Can you just imagine what it would be like to be in God's presence? I can just imagine myself doing this. Wonderful, wonderful future we have. So I guess I need to close as Nicole would. May that power and light and love and care be present in your life now. And may you not fear anything about the time when your human life comes to an end. May it be so.